Basically, we're in a situation where I could say to you, give me 100 quid and I'll flush it down the toilet for you.
Yeah.
Or give me 100 quid and I'll give you £231 back. Can you imagine any occupation today where you go to work for your 8-hour shift or your 12-hour shift 6 days a week with that little nagging doubt in the back of your mind that you may not see the end of the shift?
Whichever way you cut it, cheaper than 7 million.
Bradford Council commissioned ACOM, who are a firm of very reputable consulting engineers. They did a very lengthy and costly study,
Yep.
And they came up with a figure of 6.9 million to repair
Okay,
it. So actually,
so let's talk worst case.
so
7 million.
abandonment and repair are effectively the same price.
Yeah. Good morning. It's 5:30 in the morning, probably a bit earlier than that, and we are heading up north. Jones. Okay, it's 5 hours later and we are here in Queensbury. For context, Bradford just to our east, probably 4 or 5 miles. Town of Queensbury just above us up there, which we will show you shortly. And we are joined by a very special guest today who I've been very keen to meet for quite some months. A man called Graham.
Hello.
Okay, so Graham, you are responsible for the wonderful website, I would have called it a piece of art because it's fantastic, Forgotten Relics.
Forgotten Relics, yeah.
Also, you are, I wouldn't say heading, but perhaps not, but very
No,
involved
very much
with...
not the head.
No, okay.
Very much the backroom boy for the Queensbury Tunnel campaign, yeah.
Yes. So where are we now? Where are we?
We're about 400 feet below Queensbury.
Yep.
And about half a mile from the village. This was the site of Queensbury Station. A unique piece of, almost unique piece of railway heritage that there was Ambergate in Derbyshire that had a triangular layout with platforms in and out of the triangle.
Yeah.
Queensbury also, so there were 2 stations that had that layout.
And this is one of them.
And this was one of them.
Okay. We're talking about today mainly the Queensbury Tunnel and the campaign behind potentially reopening it for...
Yeah.
But there's been a few twists very much of late.
It's been a sorry saga
Yes.
for many years now.
Okay.
It shouldn't have been as difficult as it has been, but we can talk about it.
We'll come to that very shortly. Right, onwards. Right, before we talk about Queensbury Tunnel and the plight of Queensbury Tunnel, we've just come to the east by probably 300 yards, and we're at the entrance, or near enough, to Clayton Tunnel. Clayton Tunnel, 1,000-yard long tunnel, and we're probably 10-15 metres above the track bed level, because it's now been sort of infilled to, as Graham was saying, probably what was previous, because it's very much aligns with the rest of the landscape and the hills here. But have a look down there and you'll see Clayton Tunnel. Graham was also explaining to us that up there is a shaft. Our question was, why is the shaft so close to the tunnel portal? And of course the obvious reasonable explanation is that was put in before the portal was dug out. We always assumed from very early on, shaft is for air ventilation, but I'm assuming that's actually very rarely the case.
The shafts were initially sunk for construction purposes.
Yeah.
So with 1.4 miles of tunnel, if all you do is start at one end and start at the other end, it's going to take you forever to meet in the middle. Yeah. And you know, there's great potential for you to not meet at all.
Yes.
So What they did was line the tunnel, survey the tunnel, create a line over the top, sink shafts along the line of the tunnel,
Yep.
and then from the bottom of the shafts you drive pilot tunnels, headings
Yep.
out from the bottom, and then they join.
So-
And they're sort of 300-400 yards apart. So
Yep.
you create additional working faces from
Yep.
which you can make progress.
So as long as you've got the labour, you can literally create, instead of 2 entrances, 10 entrances.
Labour was plentiful and cheap.
Of course, yeah, and not
And
very
if we
much well cared about.
if we kill a few,
Yes,
yeah.
and Queensbury we did kill a few, correct?
There were 600 men involved in constructing the tunnel
Yeah.
during the 4 and a bit years. We know at least 10 of them didn't make it.
Right.
So
That's what we know of.
1 in 60,
Yeah.
1 in 60 were killed. Now, can you imagine any occupation today where you go to work for your 8-hour shift or your 12-hour shift 6 days a week with that little nagging doubt in the back of your mind that you may not see the end of the shift,
Yeah.
a reasonable possibility that you will not see the end of the shift. There is this fantastic feat of engineering built in the 1870s, 1.4 mile long railway tunnel, which closed in the 50s and became a liability, or at least that's
Yep.
what the people who own it regard
Yes.
it as. Of course, what it actually is a transport asset. It
Yep.
is what you make of it. When the closure came, motor cars were the future.
Most definitely. It
Motor
was
cars
encouraged.
are not really the future anymore. They will play a part in our future. But in 30 years' time, it'll be nice to think that they will be just one way of
Yes,
getting around,
we're
and
not
actually
quite so reliant. Yeah.
what we'll be doing more is walking and cycling.
Yep.
Because it makes no sense to get in your car to drive 800 yards to see a friend or to go to the shops.
Yep.
You should be getting on your bike. It's healthy for you, it's better for the environment. So what we have here is not a liability. It is a strategic connection between Calderdale at the other side of the big hill
Yep.
and Bradford district at this side of the big hill. Two big population centres with communications between the two not great. And as we move forward, getting our head around the importance of cycling for health and environmental issues, we need to look at these resources, these assets, and think how we can make good use of them. We can't be spending £7 million of public money, which is what Highways England is proposing to do.
So just let's do it in
Destroying this
perspective.
asset.
£7 million to basically block it off forever, close it, abandon it officially.
Yeah,
Go on.
£7 million will pay for 120 metres of fill at this end, 120 metres of fill at the other end, and a load of fill down 7 shafts. Then they walk away and let 88% of the tunnel collapse below the village.
Which is staggering. It's a staggering amount of money.
It's an appalling waste of public money.
Yes, to actually destroy something.
And they're doing it on the basis of ignorance and hysteria. There is no meaningful engineering evidence to support what it is they're proposing to do.
Right.
Bits of the tunnel are in poor condition, there's no doubt about that. There are 2 partial collapses, there's a section about 300 yards long which they've stabilised over recent months, which is deteriorating, some unpleasant defects. But anyone with real engineering knowledge about tunnels would tell you that fundamentally this structure's okay, and for the 7 million that they want to spend destroying it,
Yeah.
you could repair it
So
to a
let's-
point where it becomes a useful asset again.
So let's talk about that figure. In terms of, so before we come to yesterday's news, what would be, let's say we wanted to turn this into a cycle route just to get from here to the other portal,
Yeah.
or this area in broad terms, what are we talking about cost?
Well,
Isn't it-
they costed it at 35.4 million back in 2016,
Right.
which caused the minister at the time to say that's unaffordable,
Yeah.
can't do that, and abandonment became the default
Yeah.
option at that point. Unfortunately, that figure was, quote, simply too high to be credible,
Yeah.
according to the DFT. But it created a situation where abandonment was off everyone's agenda.
Okay.
So Bradford Council, who would have to take ownership of it, said, £35.4 million of the liabilities, no thank you.
Yeah.
And they ran to the hills. It's only through the campaigners' engagement and demonstration that actually you can do it at a much more sustainable cost.
Yep.
We said about 3 million, 2.8 million. Bradford Council commissioned ACOM, who are a firm of very reputable consulting engineers. They did a very lengthy and costly study,
Yep.
and they came up with a figure of 6.9 million to repair
Okay.
it. So actually,
so let's talk worst case.
so
7 million.
abandonment and repair are effectively the same price.
Yeah, at worst case. And let's take the option we all would like, which is the 6.9 million carry on.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to get my head around is there's an unquantifiable figure of how much that would do the local economy. You know I have friends that go places to cycle on cycle routes specifically just because they can. And this to be perhaps one of the longest tunnels in Europe that you could cycle through if it were opened, I can't imagine, it's unquantifiable how much.
Except it's not unquantifiable,
okay.
because Sustrans have done the work for us. Isn't that
Okay.
fantastic?
Right, that wasn't set up, I promise you.
They did a study, Sustrans did a study 3 years ago probably now, and what they found was that a cycle path connecting Halifax to Bradford and Keighley,
Yeah.
in terms of social, economic and tourism benefits, would generate £37.6 million over 30 years.
And fittingly, we arrive at the entrance to the tunnel.
That was me. That wasn't an entrance
You're
to
not
a tunnel.
entrance to the tunnel. And yeah, one of the points you raised earlier was you can't see it, and that's the point about this. It's so difficult. It's really easy to look at a viaduct and go, my goodness me, we'd be criminal to get rid of that viaduct.
They
Because look
enhance
at it.
landscapes, don't they?
Yeah,
viaducts?
look at it.
They
It's
really do.
beautiful structure, and imagine the work that went into that. And you look at this, and to me, obviously, and to you, that's a beautiful thing. But to really appreciate it, well, you can't, because you stand above it and you can't see it, and you go 100 yards that way and you can't see it.
And
But
if you go in it, it's just a dark hole.
it's a dark hole, isn't it? And you get a bit disorientated until you switch your torch on. So that's, I guess, the problem that we're facing. Maybe not enough people know about this. But
People
despite
are waking up to it.
yeah,
to be
they
fair.
are. Yeah, I mean, yes, I would imagine that every single one of our subscribers that's in this country would have a good knowledge of this and the campaign that you guys are running.
But people are also waking up to its potential. You know, the council
Yes.
is now on board. The council
Yes.
at that end's now on board.
Yeah.
West Yorkshire Combined Authority have just put in a funding bid for £23 million
Yeah.
to deliver this scheme. So everybody of any note recognises the potential benefits, the opportunity that this presented,
Yeah.
and yet when you ask Highways England, could you just pause the abandonment works just for a few months while we come to a decision about the funding? No, we won't. No, we will continue to plough. It's just breathtaking.
Yeah. So hopefully you can hear us over the noise of the generator.
There's a generator.
Why is
yeah.
there a generator, Graham?
That's a very good question. It's so that they've got some light to burn the money.
Okay. So why
burn the money with.
is that? Why is there light at the moment in the tunnel?
I genuinely can't answer that question.
Right.
There is a generator, we think, because there is a CCTV camera, which we think is there because the trackway behind us is of value. It's just one of the many things where if I had any hair, I would pull it out.
And so here we are, stood right by shaft number 2, and just down the hill in front of us is the southern portal, and we can see right there the spoil heap from shaft number 2,
From when it was constructed.
which is a heck of a bit.
Yeah.
And do we know how far? I'm probably getting a little bit too technical for my own good. How far down we are, or how far up we are from the actual track bed?
The shaft is 99 metres.
Right, and we're here for a specific reason. We're here because this is where they infilled it just a few weeks ago.
We were all sleeping. And then I had a phone call from a journalist who said, we've just received this press release from Highways England that they're infilling the shaft under emergency powers. And I thought,
As we speak.
what?
Yeah.
What? And yes, they were. They very much under the radar. They turned up, set up a site, and were, hurriedly tipping 2,000 tons of aggregate down the shaft.
Yeah. And as we said, £150,000 close to do this.
Yes, yeah, for reasons we simply cannot fathom.
So let's put this into perspective as well. The closest house is
150 metres
150 metres
to the
away.
nearest property.
And
Yeah.
also, in every direction, 150 metres to the closest property, nothing else in any direction.
But hang on, there is the M1 motorway, obviously.
This is a big
10 feet,
yeah.
10 feet from the side of the shaft.
So have they given a reason as to why they decided shaft number 2 needed infilling?
Because at the bottom of the shaft, in the side wall, about 5 metres south of the shaft, there is a refuge which has been failing since about 2012. I've seen it on a number of occasions, and it gets a bit worse from time to time. There's also a bulge in the side wall, but the support structure for the shaft is fundamentally fine, and even if there was a collapse of this refuge, the load paths from the shaft would simply redistribute through the rest of the lining.
Right.
And the shaft, quite unusually, the shaft is in 2 bits. So the lining of the shaft, the lower part of the shaft lining, which is fundamentally supported by the tunnel lining,
Yeah.
then you have a gap of about 3.5 metres of just exposed rock,
Okay.
on which is supported the upper part of the shaft lining. So even if there was some catastrophic chain of events whereby the lower part of the shaft collapsed, and
Yeah.
it wouldn't, but if it did, the upper
hasn't got any
the upper
bearing on
part
this whatsoever.
is still independently supported by this lump of rock. There is no engineering explanation for what they did. There was no emergency whatsoever.
And an emergency in those terms means danger to human welfare.
The threat of serious damage to human welfare
Yeah.
is what it says in the relevant regulations.
And it just so happens that as we've seen, other shafts are in people's garden. They're in
Shaft
places.
3 is Shaft 3 is in somebody's back garden. Shaft 4 is between 2 bungalows. Shaft 5 is next to an electricity substation behind the back of it. Shaft 6 is in somebody's garden.
Right.
Shaft 2, fortunately, has an access road and is in the middle of nowhere.
It's a huge coincidence, isn't it, really?
It's coincidental, that actually this was quite an easy one to fill in. In fact, of the 7 shafts, this is undoubtedly the easiest one to fill in.
Okay, so from shaft number 2 and from the southern portal of the Queensbury Tunnel, we are signing off. But before we do, a few important things. Graham, what can our viewers do now? What can they do to help this plight?
The practical thing they can do is object to the planning application. Abandonment, they can't just abandon the tunnel, they need planning permission. They put a planning application in May. So far, 4,902 people have objected to it, which is an astronomical number, unprecedented number.
Yeah,
We'd like to hit 5,000. 5,000 feels like a nice number.
it does, doesn't it?
So if they can object, they don't have. It's a 2-minute job. You can do it
Yeah.
online. There's really no effort.
So we will put that link in the description, but we'll also put that link as a pinned comment, because I get you guys read the pinned comment more than you do the description. So please, we always ask you to subscribe and click on the like button. We're not asking you to do that. Today we're asking you to do exactly what Graham has said, which is sign the petition against this. Let's get to 5,000 and let's maybe get to a little bit more.
Let's get more.
Yeah, absolutely. So do that. Leave a comment to tell us you've done that and you've
The
rejected.
critical thing is object. Do not support. 70 odd people have supported the planning application, thinking that they're supporting
Yes.
the cycle path.
Right.
Make sure you click object.
Okay.
Object.
Click on the link below, click on the link in the pinned comment and object, and help Graham and everyone else involved with the campaign get this over 5,000 objections, and then who knows what from there onwards. Whilst we're all waffling, have a look at Graham's YouTube channel. Graham doesn't produce a lot of videos, but my goodness me, the quality is fantastic. We've been fans for a long time. If you want to be educated on
I haven't
how
paid him to say anything.
if you want to be educated on how they built tunnels, if you want to be educated on Queensbury Tunnel specifically, Graham's done some wonderfully produced, and I mean professional and beyond videos. So go check out the channel. I'll also put that link in the description below. Anything else to add, Graham? Have I forgotten anything?
No, I think we've had an entertaining ride, haven't we,
Yeah,
today?
absolutely.
You've seen what there is to see.
Yes.
It's a great opportunity, and we hope you'll come back and get your cycling clips out and ride
That
your
would
bike
be
through
good.
it.
We will,
cycle.
yes,
When
we
it
will hold you to that.
opens, we'll be there.
So from the three of us, thank you for your time, Graham. Very
No
much
worries.
appreciated. And we shall see you, well, probably next week. I say next week, who knows when, but next week.